I started receiving messages. You know how sometimes you get a text from an unknown number that just says, "Hi." I block them, but sooner or later that same hi pops up from another number, and I block that one. Well, this started out like that, only the first message wasn't hi. It was, "We are not dead." They claimed to be using a future technology to send messages back in time, a warning of the world to come. The Horror Eternal presents We Are Not Dead. Chapter 7, The Party Trick. A new text called out, but for once, I wasn't moved to read. Last night's event had made the texts and their warning from the future all too real. I went out to the couch and clicked on the TV, went to a news station, stories about the strange hum heard all over the world. Flipped to another, the hum, and another, and another. The event had been felt worldwide, and it was all anyone was covering. Social media was obsessed, much more fear and panic there. This was the ultimate conspiracy meets high strangeness event. On the news, it was the geologists and meteorologists hashing out their theories. Online, it was the everyday man attempting to cope. I thought about what the voice from the future had written, that after the event, things were never the same. Even the light felt different. I went to my window and looked out on a gray LA haze. No direct sunlight, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary to me. Nothing changed. Another text. I looked at the banner like a hot stovetop. I tapped and slid it off the screen. I wasn't ready. The appalling weight of work seized me in its hangover grip. Then I realized it was an off day, thank God. The text continued to beckon. Looked at the time, 8:45 a.m. Went to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, and fumbled for the bottle of whiskey I kept out of mind. The fridge held a half-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. Not my favorite mix, but it would do. Plopped back down on the couch, hit Netflix, put on my show, and started to drink. After a couple episodes and the rest of that Dr. Pepper whiskey, and my resolve began to waver. I was in the movie now. Might as well see what happens. I picked up the phone and gave myself one last argument against, then folded and opened the text chain. The first text read, "It was around this time that stories started appearing about missing animals. It was all over the internet. Pets that had simply disappeared. Birds from their cages, dogs and cats from their homes. It was random. A pet vanished here and there, but over time, numbers had begun to show up in closely monitored wildlife. Horses, cows, pigs, chickens, all of old McDonald's stock were disappearing. Not all at once. One day, a farmer had 10 head of cattle. The next, he had 8. No bodies, no evidence of escape or break-in from the outside. I spent most of my day at work, hungover from my night with Kate and reading about this emerging phenomenon. I wasn't a big pet person, so I had no personal experience with the matter, and I hadn't heard of anyone I knew's pets vanishing, but I was intrigued. I mean, the obvious conclusion would be that the creatures were eating the animals. Those teeth, the hideous teeth. And of course, it was the most obvious theory going. There were other, less popular ideas that something was changing in the environment since the aliens appeared, but you had to immediately reason that if that were so, where were the bodies? The whole thing was brushed off in the mainstream. Snopes deemed it a fabricated hysteria. Yeah, we've got alien monsters standing around on every corner of the planet observing us, but missing animals, that's just hysteria. I decided to ask around the office, see if any of my coworkers had disappearing pets. There weren't a lot of people there, but there was one story that seemed to fit. Tammy, one of the administrative assistants on the executive side, explained that she had 2 decently sized box turtles for her kids. 2 nights before, she'd fed them before bed, and in the morning there was only one in the tank. No evidence of escape, no body, just gone. I asked if there was a watcher in her house. She said there'd been one on their back patio, but that it had disappeared the same night. There was still one on the sidewalk in front of their house and in her neighbor's front yard. I'd heard of animals disappearing before a major calamity, like a massive earthquake, but a turtle in an aquarium doesn't have the option to run. I caught up on the text and sat up from the couch. Then my drink made its presence known. I had a healthy buzz for 9:15 in the morning, but the thought of no whiskey mixable liquid in the fridge prodded me to get on my feet and go to the store. I threw on some sweats and a hoodie, slid my feet into my sandals, and shuffled down to my car. I stopped at the first place I saw, a liquor store on the corner 1 block up. I wandered around, trying to focus on what to get, but my attention kept going to the conversation at the register. The cashier, an older Indian woman, and another customer, a stocky younger Indian man with a small Shih Tzu on a leash, related their stories about the event from the night before. The cashier had been asleep in her apartment. It spooked the kids who'd woken her up. They went outside to listen. At first, the kids were frightened and crying, but as it went on, they began to like it, saying it had given them a ticklish feeling in their bellies. By the end, they were laughing and playing. The customer said he'd been walking his dog when it happened. He noted he'd had trouble getting the dog to go out. This was before the hum began. She refused, and he'd had to drag her out the door. She seemed afraid of something. Then, when the world began to vibrate and hum, she'd gone into a hysterical barking fit, growling and snapping as if threatened by another animal. This behavior had lasted throughout the event, and when it was over, she'd begun whimpering and whining, then spent the entire night howling. I grabbed another Dr. Pepper and a 7 Up for variety, and walked up to stand in line behind the other customer. He turned and looked at me as he spoke, passively including me in their discussion as he asked what the cashier thought the hum might have been. The cashier spoke about a half sentence in Hindu, switching back to English with something about the end of Kali Yuga. The guy nodded and shrugged. He didn't offer a response. Normally, I don't get involved in public conversations. I keep to myself, but the buzz and the text from the future mixed to make me act completely out of character. "Aliens," I announced. They both looked at me with the same skeptical eyebrow raise, clearly shocked by my sudden interjection and unsure about whether I was serious about what I'd said. "It's the beginning," I continued. "A warning. In a couple years, these things are going to appear. Aliens. They'll be everywhere. They won't do anything. They'll just be there, watching us. The sound was how it begins." They both gave me bemused smiles and shook their heads with uncomfortable chortles that said, "Sure, buddy. Whatever you say." I went on in the face of their obvious discomfort. I hate to admit that I got some sense of enjoyment or maybe superiority out of their response. "I know it sounds crazy, but just remember what I said. You will when it happens." The man grabbed his bag from the counter and led his dog towards the door. "And when it happens, keep a good eye on your dog, mister," I added. Then his politely disbelieving expression turned to a kind of scowl that said I was fucking crazy and a sicko. I guess I couldn't blame him. I asked the cashier for a bottle of whiskey, might as well have backup, and paid for my drinks. She didn't say anything more. The vibe was cold. I'd gone from being a silly crank to downright scary. Another text arrived just in time as I stumbled back into my apartment, restocked and loaded and ready to read. I refilled my cup, returned to the couch, and opened the latest message. By mid-afternoon, my thoughts wandered to Sadie. I'd made tentative plans with her for that night, but struggled with an overwhelming desire to text Kate. I wrestled with it for a while, but finally convinced myself to text Sadie and feel out the situation, reasoning that I could always text Kate after if things didn't work out with Sadie. Or I could bail on Sadie if I changed my mind. But reality was, hitting up Kate this soon after our night together was a textbook no-no. I shot Sadie a simple "hi," and she replied in under 3 minutes, a positive sign. A few flirtatious messages back and forth, and we had a date set for drinks after work. Hopefully my hangover from the night before would have worked itself out by then. Around 4 o'clock, I was surprised to see Kate's name pop up on my lock screen. Her text read, "How are you feeling?" I didn't answer right away, slid the banner off screen, and began running over all the different ways I might handle the situation, one of which was to simply not answer, wait a day or two. I went over and over it in my head for a good 45 minutes until finally settling on a direct response. I wanted to see Kate again, so I didn't want to blow her off. I'd just have to avoid making any plans for that night. I responded with hungover and left out to dry, followed by a smiley face emoji. Me too, followed by the thermometer and ice bag on head emoji came back, immediately followed by, "What are you doing tonight?" "Recuperating!" Exclamation point. I replied hastily, overtaken by an irrational feeling of guilt. Then a panic pushed the guilt aside as I saw the exclamation point I'd added after recuperating, suddenly reading the punctuation as it would be perceived without context, anger, or annoyance. I'd heard a kind of playful laughter in my head when I typed it, but without it. I quickly pulled up the tilted smiley face laughing with tears emoji and hit send. "Me too" popped up as soon as I hit send, so it was likely unaffected by my damage control measures. I didn't respond right away, thinking it best to let it be. But about an hour later, as I left the office to meet up with Sadie, I was stricken with a sudden urge to reply, "Feel better," followed by the blushing smiley face. There was no response. I met up with Sadie at a bar across town, one I'd chosen for its distance from the one I'd been to with Kate the night before. God forbid Kate show up and see me with someone else. It was a quaint patio restaurant bar, serving grilled Mexican and no watchers anywhere on the premises or visible in the immediate vicinity. I arrived first. Sadie showed up a few minutes later. We got a nice private spot in the back corner near the fountain. We started off with some drinks. I went for a simple vodka cranberry, something easy for the lingering hangover. She ordered the house margarita. Then, as the waiter turned to leave, she called him back and added 2 Jägermeister shots. "I like to start things off with a bang," she explained with a kind of calculated composure. Despite her seeming alcoholic death wish, Sadie had a very different vibe from Kate. About 5'6", she was small but thin. Her well-toned arms signal her athleticism, something she'd brought up in our previous conversations. Her hair was thick, blonde, shoulder-length. Green eyes were penetrating but calming. "So, how'd you find a place without monsters?" she asked. "I called around," I replied. "You did?" "I did." "I'm impressed." "I'm kidding. It was blind luck. But let's take it as a positive omen." Just then, the shots arrived. She grabbed hers and held it up to me. I followed suit. "2 positive omens," she said. The Jaeger kicked like a mule, an angry, vengeful mule. I felt another night of madness coming on. "So, I have to ask the obvious up front," Sadie said. "What do you think of the creatures?" I stared back, gathering my thoughts. "Careful how you answer. Wrong answer, and this'll be a short date," she said with a straight face. Okay," I said, fumbling for words in my head. "No pressure, I'm just messing with you," she said with an expression that said otherwise. I finally kicked the engine in my nugget and spit something out. I honestly don't have a good answer to that question." "Oof, strikes out on the first question." She raised a hand to the waiter and indicated 2 more shots. "Drink your punishment," Sadie commanded when the drinks arrived. "Let's order some food. I don't want you puking before we even get started." We ordered. I chose something heavy to counteract the Jaeger assault. "Okay, I bombed out. Your turn. What are your thoughts on our creepy visitors?" I countered. She didn't hesitate. "I think the answer's obvious. They're a challenge. No different than anything else in life. It's up to us to figure out how we can gain from this interaction. That's what I'm doing. And by the way, don't be so Earth-centric. You call them visitors. How do we know we're not the ones moving through their space?" Good point. Never thought about that," I said. "So, what can you learn from those rows of razor teeth in their heads?" "Teeth? Plenty of animals have teeth and eat plants. They're called herbivores." "Touché. But, I've read it's animals and pets disappearing, not house plants." "That's unfounded speculation, an internet rumor. There's no evidence the visitors have anything to do with that. If that's even a thing," she said. "They don't even move." "You want to hear something crazy?" I asked. "We're talking about the invasion of an otherworldly race of creatures, and you've got something crazy?" "Okay, relative to the subject crazy," I relented. "Shoot," she said. Yesterday, when I came down to my car after work, one of those things was sitting in the passenger seat. "Sitting?" Sadie questioned, skeptical. "Yeah, sitting, legs bent. I thought they only stood," she argued. So did I continued. But the weird part is, I left the car and took a lift home. It was just too much to drive with one. And today, when I came in the morning, it was gone. Okay, they do that. Vanish? Sure. But it wasn't simply not there. The passenger side door was wide open, and there was gooey shit all over the seat where it had been, like it had gotten up, opened the door, and walked away. Okay, that's a little crazy. I'll give you that one, she said. But, I said, I'll do you one crazier, she continued. Crazier than that? Mind fuck batshit crazy. This ought to be good, I said. Lay it on me. For the first time, she hesitated, a stuck look on her face. Just then, the waiter arrived with our food. She ordered 2 more shots. I'm waiting, I said, as the waiter departed, feeling like the one in control for the first time. I can make them appear at will, she said. You can what? I reacted. Yeah, I don't know why, can't explain it, what it means, but if I focus, do a little meditation and focus on them, a creature will appear. No shit. That's crazier than crazier. That's just downright terrifying, I said. Her eyebrows ruffled. Is it? They don't do anything. If you can really do that, it proves some kind of psychic connection exists, some kind of communication. The government might want to dissect you to see how you do it. But there is a psychic connection. Have you never been close to one and felt its voice in your head? Her words cut through me. Well, I thought it was just my imagination. No, everyone hears them. But they don't make any sense. Everyone says that, but the thoughts are in English, right? You hear the words. Maybe we just don't understand their context. And none of this is disturbing to you, I prodded. No, why would it be? The human race has been asking the question as long as we could reason. Are we alone? We finally get the answer, and you want to be a scaredy cat? This is exciting. This is science. This is evolution. I think I preferred being alone. That's pussy talk, come on. You're supposed to be seducing me with your manliness. This kind of talk's drying me up. She turned and motioned to the bartender for 2 more shots. Whoa, now hold up. No more shots until you show me this trick of yours. I don't want you getting too drunk and blaming it on the alcohol when you can't perform, I said. A challenge? Okay, that's more like it. That's the spirit. You might get your dick sucked yet, she said, her competitive nature blossoming. Okay, I need some quiet. Don't speak. Give me a few moments to center my thoughts. I watched as she slid her chair out from the table, settled in the seat, crossed her arms, and closed her eyes. Her facial features relaxed, her posture loosened. The waiter came by with our drinks. I put my forefinger to my lips, signaling Sadie's serene repose. She sat there as the minutes ticked by. I used the moment to study the contours of her face, the slope of her neck, her shoulders, arms, and waist, the way her hips melted into the chair, her legs, athletic but still feminine. Then her eyes opened and met mine. Well, I asked. Well, there you go, she said, gesturing past me. I turned and there it stood, a watcher. Eyes blinking back about 4 feet from the table. I'd been so busy checking out Sadie, I hadn't seen it appear. Motherfucker, I said, then grabbed the shot from the table and held it up to Sadie. Bottoms up. If you have enjoyed this program, please like, review, and share. Spread the word. Help us build an audience to change the future. The Horror Eternal presents We Are Not Dead. Written, produced, and performed by Roy Burdine. Sound design and mix by Mark Labib. The Horror Eternal and We Are Not Dead are copyright 2025 Roy Burdine. This has been a Spiral Opus audio production. Also from Spiral Opus, don't miss Mindraker, Background Anger, the story of a psychic assassin on a mission from God. Season 1 available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Monster Forge. We make monsters.